Let's do it real fast. All right, so today I'm excited about this one because this has made a really big impact in um, not only our business, but just my personal life, having a good buffer with learning how to build some passive income. I feel like a lot of people talk about passive income, but I think as you start to get into this more and more, you find out that like things are not as passive as what you were told they were. And so let's talk a little bit about why wraps exist. Okay. So most people think passive income means rentals. By a show of like hands or comments, comment one in the chat real quick if you own at least one rental property. I want to see how many people in here own rentals. Okay, Brent, Isabel, Nolan. Okay. So you, yeah, David. David's got at least one. Um, okay, so anybody that owns rentals, they know that it's not really passive, at least early on, until you maybe have multiple properties or have really good systems in place. But when you're first getting started, it's definitely not that way. Obviously, you have, tenants, maintenance, management, CapEx, like a roof, HVAC, anything like that. And really, that's one of the reasons why I feel like most investors kind of burn out before they're able to scale because they're dealing with all this stuff. They're dealing with a $5,000 expense out of nowhere. Like I just had to replace a deck on a property out of nowhere that was 6 grand. I didn't think I had to replace it, but the tenants complained and it was a big issue. And so it's like you just never know when those expenses are going to come up. If you have two, three, four of those properties, it's like that stuff can add up really quick. Last week I had another HVAC go out. Like things like that add up. So wraps really solve this because you're not responsible for any of the kind of repairs with the property because you're no longer the actual owner of the property. You're just acting as the bank. Okay. So you get really good monthly cash flow, a lot more than on a rental, way fewer headaches. I can't remember the last time I had anybody that I've sold a property to or wrapped a property to that's like reached out to me with like some big problem. It's very cut and dry, except for like the occasional, hey, I'm gonna be like a couple days late because I'm waiting on a check to come in. Like that's about as like messy as it gets. Obviously, things can get worse if you don't find a good buyer, like that kind of stuff can happen. But in general, it's way more passive. And it's much easier to scale this because instead of you having to figure out how to get property management on 40 properties, maybe you just get 40 mortgage notes where you're just dealing with passive income. That's kind of the ideal scenario. So what is a wrap? To some of y'all, this may be really simple, but I'm doing this to be able to teach at like the foundational level, and then we can get more advanced. So, in short, a wrap is when you buy a property with a mortgage, right? And that mortgage can come from a few places. Number one, you could buy that property subject to the existing lien or mortgage. So you leave the loan in place, you take over the payments. The second one could be seller financing. So I think a lot of times when people talk about this, they talk about it in terms of subject to. But this could also be if you're able to structure a seller finance deal. That's how I bought the house that I live in right now. This is also a property that you could wrap terms around and sell on owner finance as well. You also could just get a bank loan. There's a lot of people that maybe they have rentals that, they got mortgages in their own name. Maybe they got like a DSCR loan or they got something like that. I know a lot of people that do the strategy of I like the BRRRR strategy where they'll, renovate it, refinance it, all that kind of stuff, get a tenant in there for a little bit, and then later on down the road, they decide they want to wrap it. So at that point, you sell the property with owner financing, and you're essentially just collecting the spread between what your buyer pays you every month and what you have to pay on the underlying mortgage. Okay. So the reason why it's called a wrap, just to clarify one more time, is because your new agreement is wrapping around existing terms on the first mortgage. Okay. Before I move on, does anybody have questions on this? Because I think that sometimes this is where people can get stuck. Any questions on that? Okay. So essentially, you can wrap your interest rate, payment amount, loan balance, remaining term. This is a big one because I find some people They get a 30-year mortgage, they take it subject to, let's say it's got 28 years left on the loan, but then they try to sell it on a 15-year term. Can anybody tell me what the problem is with that? What would the
By the
potential problem be?
Yeah, by the end of year 15, so they're trying to sell it on a 15 year like mortgage. Is that what you're saying?
You try to owner finance it on a 15-year mortgage. Yeah. What's the problem with that?
The problem is that the loan that you took over subject to is a 30-year mortgage. And by
Correct.
the end of year 15, you still have got another 15 years to pay the
Mhm.
mortgage, right?
Exactly. I know this sounds simple, and to some of y'all it may be like, why are we going over this? It's because number one, when I first got started, I almost made this mistake, being like, oh my gosh, if I can do a 15-year mortgage, their payment's going to be this much higher, and now I get to cash flow this much more. But in order for you to wrap anything, the new terms that you create have to be larger than the old terms, than the existing terms. So keep that as just like a general framework, okay? Now, how does this work in real life? Real short, I'm going through these pretty quick because I want to be able to answer questions. Underlying mortgage that we just talked about, that loan has set terms, all of these that we just talked about. You create a new agreement with your buyer that's looking for owner financing. You sell it to them. This creates a new mortgage that they now have with you. Okay, so this isn't just like a handshake, like, hey, like pay me whenever you feel like it. This is a mortgage just like you sign up when you go get a bank loan. It's against the property. If someone does a title search, they're going to see you pop up on title. Okay. Their loan wraps around the existing terms. The buyer pays you. You pay the underlying loan every month. You keep the difference. And that's your monthly cash flow. Okay. So, why are these so powerful? Number one, they truly are passive, like we talked about. You start to actually build equity over time. And the reason for that is because number one, you've probably sold the property at a higher price than what you got it for if you're doing this right. Hopefully, you got a good discount and got a good deal. The second thing is if you bought a property that has a 2.5% interest rate on it and then you sell it at 8%, which one is probably paying down quicker?
2.8.
The 2.5%, right? Unless there's a
Mhm.
huge
Uh-huh.
discrepancy in the prices, if they're close to the same, most likely the 2.5% is going to be paying down faster, at least on the front end of the loan, right? So over time, your equity position is going to grow, right? So the other cool thing about wraps and why they're so powerful is you can take on deals that don't work as long-term rentals. How many people in here, just by like a show of hands, have run across a deal that has maybe a 3.5% interest rate, but you look into it further and you see it doesn't really work as a long-term rental? Has anybody seen that? Because I see it all the time. And that's a really low interest rate. 3.5%, 3%. It happens. And it's a waste, like that's an asset to be able to keep. And it's a waste just to throw that away. That's why it's good to have this in your back pocket, even if it's not your primary strategy, which I would argue if you're getting started, this might be a better primary strategy than just picking up rentals. And we can kind of get into that. But the second thing is you can take on deals that need a lot of repairs. This is one of the biggest hidden gems when it comes to wrapping properties. Some of my best deals were the ones that I looked at first as a rental because I was wanting to buy rentals left and right. I looked at it, I'm like, man, this property needs 50 grand in work, and I got to pay the wholesaler 10 grand. The house is only worth 300. So I'm sinking $60,000 into a house that I'm not going to get my money back for 5 years until I sell it. It's a really tough model to scale if you're doing that. But if you can use the existing financing and sell it as is to somebody that's willing to do the work, you can lock in some good equity and some good cash flow. Like, and we can talk about the specifics of that. Okay. So people pass these deals up all the time, and I don't want y'all to be in that same boat. Okay. And the cool thing too is ideally when you're doing this the right way, oftentimes you can get most, if not all, of your cash back from the buyer's down payment. So if I get into the deal for 20 grand, right? Ideally, I'm trying to get 20 grand back from the buyer, if not more. Okay. Like we said, it's extremely scalable, little to no management, right? Not dealing with hot water heaters and all that. And this is my favorite part. To me, it's extremely fulfilling. You get to give someone the chance of owning a home, which everybody knows in America is like the biggest deal. And there's so many people. I was getting dinner with some friends last night, and they started talking about, man, I feel like I'm never going to be able to own a home. Like I just like the thought of owning a home just seems so crazy. And to me, and like the circles that I'm in, it's so like, oh, we just bought 5 homes this month and blah blah blah. But like this is a real thing for people, and it's a real blessing to be able to give someone this opportunity. Someone gave me this opportunity. This house I live in, owner financing, I couldn't go get a bank loan if I tried. I tried to go get one. This was like, what, 4 years ago or whenever I bought it. And he looked at me and he said, I want to give you an opportunity to own a home. And that's how he saw it. And it was a huge blessing for me. And so I wanted to do the same thing for other people, right? And you make good money. Okay. Why is there such a demand for owner financing? Banks are super strict, as we know. Um, and, usually they're caring about stuff like perfect credit or really good credit. They have all these guidelines they have to follow, right? They're backed by big government stuff. They have all these rules they got to follow and all that kind of stuff. For us, we're looking at what is their income. Ideally, it's 2.5 to 3x or more what the payment's going to be. And then what is their down payment? Good rule of thumb, if you can get a 10% down payment, usually that's someone that is worth at least looking into further financing, right? On a $300,000 house, ideally you're getting 25, 30, 35 grand plus. Now, if the house needs work, that might be a different story, right? But that's kind of what you're looking for because to me, someone with $30,000 saved shows more responsibility than the person that has maybe a little bit better credit score that has $3,000 saved. That's just my opinion. That's not always correct. You need to look in maybe how did they get that 30,000? Was it some kind of inheritance where they got lucky? Like those are some things you want to look at. But in general, that's a good rule of thumb. Okay. One of the biggest things about this is that because the ownership is actually transferred from you to them, they're now a homeowner. So they treat the property completely differently, as if they're renting it. Most of the time, they're not going to trash the property. A lot of times, if you sell them a property as is, what they'll do is they'll go and fix up the property, make it 5 times nicer. On every single deal I've sold as is, they've made the property 5 times nicer. And so now what happens to your collateral as the bank? The house is worth more now, right? So you're in an even better spot, which means they're probably less likely to default now because they put time, money into the home, right? So those are some things to think about. And I would challenge you to go tonight after this call and just go look on the MLS and just type in owner financing and see how many of these pop up. You're going to see there's not a lot on there, right? And the cool thing is that if you can be one of those, it's really going to show out. Like it's going to be like, wow, wait, owner financing, is this real? Like people are literally going to call you thinking it's a scam because they get so excited at the chance of being able to own a home, which I understand, by the way. So, a couple places I want to go really quick on this part. Where do wrap deals come from? Number one, obviously you can learn to go direct to seller. This could be learning how to market on your own through cold calling, driving for dollars, list with distress like foreclosures, probates, divorce, that kind of thing. This is going to give you the best margin because you get to negotiate your own deals and your own terms. But, obviously it takes time with all this. And we're going to get into this like on the weekly calls where like how do we find sellers, direct to seller, all that kind of stuff. But for now, high level, that's number one. Number two is relationships. So real estate agents have been some of the best people that I've connected with to be able to find deals and to be able to dispo deals. Like Isabel, if Isabel's in here, she helped me find my last buyer for a deal that we just wrapped. It was if Griffin's in here. It was Griffin's deal on Jim Cummings Highway. So Isabel was the agent who brought that, and she got paid a commission and did great with that. So it was pretty cool, right? So real estate agents, attorneys, lenders, friends and family, social media. How many people like are actually like posting that they like want to buy homes or buy homes in here? Show of hands. Martin is. I know Martin is. I feel like not as many people as there should be. That would be kind of the answer. I see some people shaking their heads, right? And I'll tell you this from experience, you don't have to be the expert to put yourself out there. You don't have to act like someone you're not. Like I'm not the guy that's like, "Oh, I've done 1,000 deals." And it's like that's not me, but I can help you to get started getting your first deal. I can do that, right? And so be who you are. If you've never done a deal before, hey, I'm looking for a great deal. That's all it has to be. You don't have to say, I've never done a deal, and please, like, if you're just so gracious, like to just be able to like think about me. It's like, hey, you're worthy of this too. Okay. Third thing would be buying from wholesalers. I would argue this is probably the fastest and the easiest way to get your first wrap. There's plenty of groups on Facebook, like, Pay Smarty, Creative Group. There's other subject to groups. If you have questions on that, like shoot me a DM and I can send you some of those. But that would be, I would say, like the quickest way. The issue is you're going to pay more, you're going to pay a bigger assignment fee most of the time, and the margins are going to be thinner. So you're probably going to have to reach out to more wholesalers than you probably want to be able to find your first one. Okay. So one of the questions I get a lot of times is once we've bought a property, whether it's subject to seller financing, we got a mortgage, how do we actually find good buyers for these deals? Okay. So before I go into this, can somebody give me in this group that's done a wrap how they found their buyer? I think this would be a cool thing to go over. Anybody that's done a wrap before, unmute yourself and tell me how you found your buyer.
Facebook Marketplace.
Bandit
Facebook Marketplace.
signs.
Okay. Facebook Marketplace. That's one.
Bandit signs.
Bandit signs. Heck yeah. That's the sauce right there. Bandit signs. Anyone else? We just said agents, right? Yep. Referrals. This could be from other investors that maybe know somebody that's looking for something, right? Another one is lenders, and this is something I'm really considering getting into this year, is lenders who have that you're close with that have recently denied someone that was like right on the edge that had a good down payment that wants to be in this area. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And really at the end of the day, like when you offer a real path to home ownership, like the right buyers are going to find you. But you do have to put yourself out there. And so what my recommendation would be is if you have a deal, number one, feel free to text me. Like I'm happy to help. Like I'm not gonna charge or anything. Like I'll help give advice on like what's worked for us. But Facebook is definitely one of the best places to do it. And I know a lot of people recently have been like actually boosting like the ad to be able to like get it out to more people, which we haven't done that. We haven't had to, but I think that's interesting. And bandit signs, a lot of times, what is recommended and what I've done in the past is we'll put out like 30 to 40 signs out in the area, like within maybe like a 3, 4 mile radius, at like really popular places that people are stopping, just saying like owner financing, like no banks, no credit, need to sell it, that kind of thing. You've probably seen, if you're in Tennessee, you've probably seen a lot of those signs because a lot of these people are learning from the same groups, but that's the general idea. Okay. Some of the common questions we get, are, and I'll go real quick on this, like what happens if the buyer stops paying? We can get into that in the Q&A section. Who pays taxes and insurance? Does anybody know the answer to this? Who pays tax and insurance?
The owner.
The
The
person
owner.
buying it.
Correct. The new buyer and the owner. That's the difference between owning the rental and not, is you're not having to pay for taxes and insurance now. That gets passed on to the actual owner, which is usually a pretty big expense. That could be 300, 400 bucks a month, a lot of times, right? Who's responsible for repairs and maintenance? Same thing, the owner, right? How long does the buyer typically stay in the home before they sell it or maybe refinance and pay you off? Does anybody have like real experience with this? Anyone? From what I've heard, because I have not yet, I'm about to have my first payoff here on one that I sold like 3 years ago. But I've heard most of the time it's like 5 to 7 years as like a general time
Mm.
frame. But I think that because especially if you're selling these properties at like at market value or a little bit above because you're offering owner financing, like it's going to take some time for them to be able to build the equity to be able to sell or refinance in the first place, right? So I guess the question you'd have to ask yourself at some point is like, how many of these do you actually need to be able to create the cash flow that's worth it for you to go learn this stuff, right? My answer is like probably not as many as you think. The first time someone showed me this, I legitimately went home and didn't do anything for like 5 hours and just thought through this because I was like, wait, so like if your average cash flow is $800 a month, which ours is a little bit above that. Ours is like I think like 900 or something. Um, but if your average is 800 a month, how many of these do you have to do to be able to retire yourself, or at least to be able to semi-retire yourself, quit your job, whatever it is, right? 3 wraps is 2,400 a month. 5 wraps is 4 grand a month. 10 wraps is like 8 grand a month. That's pretty crazy. So what I would love in here is to comment real quick, just doing some quick math. How many of these realistically do you feel like you'd have to do? Let's say it was even over the next 5 years to be able to retire yourself. Go ahead and comment below how many of these do you feel like you need to do in order to retire yourself? 10, 20? Mohammed's living large. 20, all right.
Hmm.
50?
Let's go.
50. That's crazy, dude. Let's go. 8? I like it. We need a few Porsches. I forgot. That's true. 27, 20. Okay. 15. Now, when you look at the number 10,000 a month or 20,000 a month, to build that up, especially if you're trying to do that with rentals, like that's going to take some time, right? With this, yes, it's going to take time, but can you see yourself doing 15 deals in 5 years? Like, is that really that hard? Maybe it's hard now if you've never done it, right? But like, how hard is that actually? Absolutely, right? So if you think of it in these terms, like I just want to encourage you, like anybody can do this. And you don't have to be some crazy smart guy. When I did my first one, I was like, I had no idea what I was doing. I had someone walking me through it, just a friend willing to help out. And I'm forever grateful for the people that, even brought this to my attention. Otherwise, I don't know what I'd be doing now, honestly. So very thankful. Let's share some real examples. So we have a deal that we got subject to. Mortgage balance is 250,000 roughly. Interest rates 2.5. The PITI, so principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, is 1445 a month. This is important right here. The principal and interest is 1100 a month. Why do we need to know the principal and interest versus the total payment? Can someone comment below real quick why that's the case? Why is this number important? I just want to make sure we're actually learning this material. Perfect. Yep. Buyer pays taxes and insurance. Cool. The rent on it is 1,800. So after paying property manager, vacancy, CapEx reserves, and let's say it's 250 a month, our real cash flow is a whopping $5 per month. That is a heck of a rental, man. We're doing great on that rental. So not a great rental. We bought it because I'm young and dumb and want to buy rentals. But also, for the tax benefits, like we're making good money this year as a business and want to make sure that we like protect that, right? So that's one of the things. And with the rate 2.5, I was like, you know what? Let's take it over and then we'll figure out later on what we want to do with it. If you can secure that asset, that 2.5% rate is definitely an asset. So if you can secure that, you can figure out, do I want to rent it, whatever. So this year we have it rented, but what I'm considering doing is wrapping it whenever those tenants move out in March. Let's look at like what that would look like compared to a rental. Okay, I think this is kind of the beauty and kind of being able to compare these two. Market value is 325. If we sold it as a wrap, we'd probably get a $25,000 down payment, which would mean what? That buyer now owes us a mortgage of, let's say, $300,000, right? So they owe us 300,000, sell it at 7.9%. Their new payment to us, principal and interest, is $2,180. Okay. Now, remember, the buyer's responsible for taxes, insurance, all the repairs. And remember, our underlying principal and interest payment is what? 1,100 a month. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were to do this, what would our true monthly cash flow be on this deal alone? A little over $1,000 a month. Okay. That's pretty good cash flow, especially for one property, right? And especially for one that's like right now not performing well as a rental, right? Like that's the beauty in doing this. The other thing is then we would capture $50,000 roughly in equity. Can anybody explain why? Why 50,000 in equity? Where does that number come from?
Because you owe the person who you bought the property from 250,000 and you sold the house for 325, but they paid down 25. Now
Mhm.
they owe you 300,000 and the difference will be 50,000.
That's right. So we on the mortgage that we took subject to, we owe $250,000. We created a new mortgage with our buyer for $300,000, right? So 300 minus 250, that's where that $50,000 number comes in, okay? And remember, there's a chance that this could grow over time as well, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So really the difference is like a difference in $1,000 a month in cash flow from renting it or wrapping. Now, if your strategy is renting and you like the other benefits, like that's totally cool. I'm just trying to show kind of a comparison, okay? Here's really the last example I want to share, and then we'll kind of get into some Q&A. There's a deal that we got. It was actually the first wrap I ever did. And this is one that was posted on Facebook. It was in Dixon, Tennessee, if you're familiar with Nashville. And I looked at it and I was like, man, this is pretty good. The balance was 175. The interest rate was roughly 3%. The principal and interest payment was $800 a month. And we had to get basically 35,000 to get into the deal. Now, remember, this is my first deal. I was buying it from a wholesaler, by the way. That's what we just talked about, right? And in my mind, I was looking at them like, why is this not snatched up yet? Like, because I'm like, this seems like a pretty good deal because the ARV was like 330. And from the pictures, you couldn't tell that it needed a lot of work. Like to me, I was like, oh, maybe it needs 10 grand, 15 grand, just from the outside. Getting into the house, the property needed over 80,000 in repairs. Like it was a full like it was bad. Smelled really bad too. It was horrible. But I had someone in my ear telling me, "Hey, we do this whole wrap thing and we sell ours as is. You could totally sell this as is." And I'm like, "Someone would buy this?" Like it's like there's like no joke, there's feces on the floor, there's water leaking from the like it's
Oh
bad.
my gosh.
Yeah, I had to pay someone $500 just to go clean that off the floor
Oh,
before I started showing the house.
oh,
But I got it cleaned up, and what ended up happening is instead of sinking 80,000 into a rehab, trying to keep it as a rental or something like that, having your capital tied up, we sold the property as is using owner financing. I got it sold within a month. We sold it for 283. Buyer gave us a down payment of 20, which is still pretty strong considering the amount of repairs he was going to have to do. Their mortgage with us is 263 at 8%. So his payment to us every month that we get is 1931, and we have to make the payment for 800 a month. So our cash flow on this deal is like 1100 a month. Now, small little caveat here. Did anybody pick up on one negative about this deal so far? What's a negative thing about this deal? All the numbers we just went through. Can anybody pick up on what happened?
You still have money in the deal after
Yes.
the down payment?
Yeah, exactly. Good catch. We spent 35 to get into the deal, plus maybe some mortgage payments. Right. So let's say we're in it for 40. All right. We got how much back? 20? Spent the
20.
deal for 20 grand. Right. Does everybody in here have 20 grand just to kind of throw around like just every deal? Just like, oh yeah, 20 grand. That's great. I don't. I don't. That's not smart. I wouldn't recommend it. So what I did is I raised $40,000 on the front end, right? I raised 40, paid 12% interest. I pay that every month. When I got my down payment of 20, I paid 20 of the principal off. So now I owe this guy 20 grand basically on this. And I just pay interest on it every month. Let's say that's $200 a month. So I take 200 out of this number and the deal pays for itself. I don't have to use any of my own money. That's what I would recommend was you're getting started. And if you get to the point where like you're making a ton of money and you got money in the bank account and you want to pay off debt, I would pay it off then. That's just how I handle it in my business. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. But the hard part is like if you're wanting to scale this thing and build cash flow, the goal is to like sink as little amount as possible. Like you can't sink 20, 30, 40 grand a deal unless you're, a freaking millionaire. Like you can't do it. Okay. The other thing is we captured 88 grand in equity between what they owe us and what we owe on the underlying. So one day the title company is going to call me and say like, "Hey, we want to get a payoff, and you're going to get a check for this." Right? And so this, I've heard some people say like, along the way you're getting passive income, but like you're also setting aside some for like retirement, right, on the back end, right, which is pretty cool. So let's kind of stop there. There's some more we could go into. I want to leave it open for Q&A for the next probably 25, 30 minutes. I know that was a lot. Um, what questions do we have about wraps? What maybe felt confusing? I want to know what would stop y'all from doing your first one. And really, like, what would you actually need clarity on to get started, let's say in the next 90 days, right? And anything else that I didn't cover that you were hoping I would, I'd love to talk about it. So, all right, let's get into
Hey,
it.
Evan.
Hey, man, what's up? You got a question?
Yeah, I do actually. Can
Do
you
you know,
go?
do you know how to raise your hand on the
No,
Zoom?
I was trying to figure out how to do that, but I couldn't.
Hmm. Okay, we'll let it slide this one time. All
Yeah,
right,
my bad. I
go for
was
it.
literally trying.
Go for it.
But I can wait my turn too.
Nah, you're good. You're good, bro. Go for it.
Can we go a little bit back and go into deeper into the taxes and insurance? I understand that the seller is paying for it, but you're taking over property sub two. And in that sub two, you're paying for taxes and insurance in that mortgage, I guess, payment. How do you transfer that so that this buyer is paying for that and not you anymore?
Good question. So, the answer is you log into the mortgage portal, you set it up on automatic payments. Usually, the escrow payment is going to be paid through the mortgage portal through the total PITI, the total payment, right? Does that part make sense so far?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have that, right? And so what you're going to look at is you can even see this on a mortgage statement. You're going to see what is the principal and interest payment on my underlying mortgage. So the loan that I took sub two, what is that number? And just subtract that from the total payment, the total PITI, right? And that
Right.
should give you what is the escrow. And you can even go on the mortgage portal and probably see what's the escrow payment, but that's like an easy way to do it as well. Even on the mortgage statement, usually it says what the escrow payment is, and it's broken down. And you're just going to charge that amount on top of what you're charging principal and interest to your new buyer. That's all you're going to do.
Okay, so technically you're still charging them for the um insurance and taxes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in that case, like let's say you would just do your mortgage, whatever you're paying the company plus the
Mhm.
interest kind of difference.
Yeah, so you're making they're responsible for tax and insurance. The only reason why you're paying it on the mortgage portal is because it's connected to that underlying mortgage,
Right. Okay.
right? So yeah, like if this was just a straight cash deal and there was no mortgage, then it would just be their responsibility to take care of it themselves.
Right.
But since you bought it sub two and like you don't want to cause conflicts, you want things to go smoothly, right? You just keep making that payment and you're just going to charge them that extra amount on whatever you agreed on as their principal and interest payment.
Gotcha. Okay. And then the insurance, so are you still keeping the insurance under, whatever you bought it through the mortgage kind of thing? Or do you add them as well as part of the beneficiaries of it?
That's a good question. Yeah. So whoever is the owner needs to be the primary insured. So they're the official owners now. So they're going to be primary insured. You need to be listed usually as additionally insured, sometimes as like a second like loss payee, but you could just
Mhm.
say additionally insured. And then the borrower on the loan that you took subject to also needs to be listed as an additionally insured. because that's how you're going to get that accepted when you send it to the mortgage company.
Correct. Yeah.
And
All
then
right.
you would cancel the old policy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, great questions. I think that's a really good question. A lot of people, first time I did it, I was like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
All
thanks for
right.
the questions, man.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. I'm sorry I skipped some people. I will learn how
Man,
to raise my hand. I know how to do it
bad
on Teams.
behavior. Bad behavior, man. All
I
right.
know how to do it on Teams. I just don't know how to do it on Zoom.
We forgive you. We're glad you're here. Cross,
Thank you.
what you got, man?
Hey Evan, going to keep this as brief as possible. First off, just want to say thanks for taking some time to chat with all of us.
Dude, yeah, thanks for being
So,
here.
Justin and I are actually spearheading an acquisitions team startup, and initially coming into this call, I had some questions about that. But pertaining to this phone call, I actually want to ask. I come from new construction, and right now, I don't know how familiar you are with the spec market, but it's not the best it's ever been.
Hmm.
And so when you started going over wraps, I'm kind of racking my brain thinking about this for a new construction aspect. If we can take these and go sell them off with a wrap and have long-term cash flow, and it's as good as what you were showing on your shared screen. I mean, I feel like it makes sense in a market where you're not able to make 80 and $90,000 per spec. You're seeing things sit for a little bit longer, but you've still got those buyers out there that need to get into a home. My questions are regarding that stuff is I know there's a lot of different things you can do with sub two. I'm not super educated on either one, more so seller finance stuff.
Hmm.
What red flags are so when we're doing new construction, obviously that would be through a traditional lender with the bank. What red flags are we looking out for as far as them finding? How are we structuring this going through the traditional route? Whereas somebody may buy one seller finance and then sell it off seller finance, we have a bank involved 10 times out of 10 times. So that's really the main question that I have regarding that.
That's a good question. Yeah, and it's something to look at. And honestly, we had one recently that we were flipping that just was not going well. And it's kind of been our first one where it's like a dud. We finally went under contract and looks like things are moving along smoothly. But my goal was like, hey, if I can't get this sold in the next couple of months, just going to refinance it, get 30-year debt on it. We have a good equity position and then just sell it as a wrap. So I think it is like a viable strategy, depending on like how much equity you have. Because, the rates that you're getting now, I mean, they're not like they're probably not in the 7.5 range anymore like they were. I don't know what they are now. I'm sure Isabel could tell me more. But I'm sure there's not a huge gap, I guess, there from what you could charge to what you can actually get. So my question would be like, what kind of are you getting 30-year fixed debt? Number one. And then number two, who is the lender that you're probably going to be working with? Like, is it a small bank or is it someone like, hey, it's the servicer, it's going to be PennyMac or someone like that? If it's a
Yeah,
small bank that you have a relationship with and they keep everything in house, I'd be like a little more concerned about it. But
Yeah, so unfortunately, all our new construction we do bank with a local, fairly small local bank.
Mhm.
The good news is we have a great relationship with the president there,
That's
and
good.
another good thing is he is actually a builder himself. So
Mm, that's great.
would you think that that would need to be a conversation that was had on the front end, or
Mhm.
kind of just not to say push things under the rug, but just kind of keep things any
Mhm.
information that isn't needed isn't given, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I would ask. I think it's worth asking. If you have a good relationship, just being like, hey, look, I'm not saying we're gonna do this, but if we ever did this, like how would you want it to look?
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, and just ask. And then like worst case scenario, you sell it on a contract for deed. It's like an executory contract. So instead of you transferring title and giving them full ownership right away, like on title, um, you're just essentially letting them, they are like the owners, technically, like they can control the asset, they can decide when they're going to sell it. But the title's like still in your name if it's searched, and that's like an easy way to get around it. So
Gotcha. Okay. I'm
that may be
interested
my
to.
recommendation, honestly. If the debt's going to be in your name, I would consider looking at that.
Okay. Yeah, I would be. What was the verbiage you used there?
A contract for deed.
Contract for deed. Yeah, I'm interested to learn more about that. I won't take up any more time with
Oh,
questions
you're good,
about that,
man.
but
Thanks for being here. And I don't know if you have my number or like on the school community. That's why I have it. Like, shoot me a message. We can text or do you live here in Nashville?
I'm actually about an hour 15 south of Nashville. I'm up in the
Okay.
area pretty often.
Cool.
So yeah, pretty close to you.
Let's get coffee sometime. We can talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love that.
Cool, man. All right.
Thanks.
Yeah. Eli, what you got, man?
Yeah. Do you, on the acquisition side, when let's say you got a seller who's, is cool with you taking over payments, but not the whole sub two thing, are you acquiring anything on the front end like lease option or executory contracts?
So you're saying they're okay taking it with you taking it subject to?
No, if they're not. Well, they're okay with you. Okay, well, they're okay with you doing seller financing, but not sub two. Have you ever acquired anything lease option and sold on lease option or
Oh, I see.
acquired? I think I know you can do
No.
this with executory contracts as well.
Okay, so I have bought one property on an executory contract on a contract for deed, um, because I was a little worried about the bank. But then we ended up later on just like recording the deed and just doing a normal wrap. It was just easier. So you can do that. You can wrap, you could sell a contract for deed and also purchase on a contract for deed, but there's a lot of like other risks. Like the more I got into
Mhm.
it, like speaking to my attorney and like other things that can pop up, it's just I think it's easier just to transfer full ownership and find another seller that's probably willing to do it. But
Yeah.
it
Okay.
is possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and just as a solo person doing my own acquisitions, sub twos are kind of like a needle in a haystack for me. And
Mm.
I just got my credit score boosted, so I'm thinking about trying to scale a little bit more with hard money and DSCR. Do you find that um, is your ratio to sub twos and using DSCRs? Um, what's your ratio or primary way of getting deals right now?
Dude, that's a great question. Also, let's hop on a separate call and talk. I'd love to connect with you. And I want to connect with like everybody in this group, like one
Yeah,
on one.
yeah.
So, but we could definitely talk about that. But finding sub twos for us is like I feel like really, I'm not being cocky, but I feel like it's really easy. I feel like once you learn how to have the conversation like the right way and you've done it enough times, like we've done over 100 sub twos at this point, so we've had enough where we're confident in talking about it, and it's not like a super scary conversation. And I'm sure that's not how it's coming across for you, but we could talk about like maybe some different ways to pitch it if it would help. Because there's definitely ways that I did that were not efficient, and it did not do well for me. So DSCR, like, I to be honest, like that's just not really like we don't really do that. I'm doing one like here in the next like couple months that it's been like a long closing deal that we're working through. But that's just because like the seller ended up passing away and it was like a crazy thing. And so I was like, let's just refinance it and get it out. But if you can get it sub two and like have that conversation and like I would do that all day. Yeah.
Mm,
Not to say that it's not a bad strategy to do DSCR if you have good equity, right? But I would maybe make that like a secondary. If you can get
yeah.
someone what they need, like cash wise in their pocket, and then just tell them, hey, I can give you X if you just do it this way. And maybe I would love to see like what list you're talking to, like the sellers you're talking to, because that's going to play a big role in it too. Like if you're talking to a seller and at the end of your pitch talking about sub two, they're asking all these questions like, what's your credit score and what's this and how many of these you done? It's like it's probably not the right seller. Just being
Mm.
honest. Like that's kind of what we've learned. Griffin, do you have any, or Cindy or Amira, do y'all have any input on that? Like when we're talking to sellers that way? Like have you seen like a pattern with that on who's usually good for sub two versus who's not?
No, honestly, I think the way that you explain it to them, people that I wouldn't expect to be open to sub to, the way that you explain it kind of gets those people in. Especially since we're working with people who are kind of in a tough position and don't
Mhm.
have too many options. If that's the way to get it done, then they'll more than likely be open to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if you're not like given multiple options. I don't know if you're
For
doing
sure.
that, but for people in the group that are giving multiple options, hey, we could do this sub two thing, or we could do cash thing, or we could do this thing. I just find like people hardly ever want to do it. Versus if you're like, hey, this is the way I can make the deal work, much more likely to do it. So that would be my advice. Great questions, man. Let's definitely connect. Shoot me a message.
Yeah,
All
appreciate it,
right.
man.
What's up next? Talia, what's
Hey,
up?
so my question is, I know it works for subject to, and it sounds like for contract for deed. What are some other instances where a wrap might work, if there are any? And then my other part of that question is it kind of the same thing of how to protect yourself from the due on sale clause where you want to, I think at one point you said like it got called and you transferred it back to them or you just put it in a trust, but how are you protecting, everyone involved?
That's a great question. So first answer is anything that has a underlying mortgage can be wrapped. So seller financing could be one. Um, Even technically like a lien or a judgment, I wouldn't recommend it, but you can do that. Um, Anything that's attached to the property like that can be technically wrapped and sold. Um, so those things, if it's just like a cash deal where you bought it cash, it would just be true owner financing because there'd be no mortgage. There's some people that, and this is I think more advanced, but there's some people that will buy cash deals, like stuff that's really cheap, like mobile homes for like 40 grand. And what they'll do is they'll raise that 40,000 and have a payment on that every month, which is like basically their mortgage. And then they'll wrap that. So like those are some examples of things you could wrap, but most of the time it's going to be like subject to or seller financing. As far as like the due on sale, does that answer your question at all? Hopefully. Um, as far as like due on sale, honestly, this is like probably the biggest wrestle that I've had with this. Just like emotionally, I think for anybody that like knows me, knows that like I take this stuff very seriously and like people's homes and lives and like feelings, and it's like a very difficult thing thinking that like someone could lose their home to it. But what I've started to realize is there's so many different exit strategies, and I think sometimes as like as people, at least I'll speak for myself. I think I've proven myself over and over and over that like when hard things come up, I can figure it out. And I think all of y'all have too. But like for some reason when it's off in the future, it's like, "Oh my gosh, that would just be too big and I could never figure it out and I'd be screwed and everything would be horrible." And it's like if it happens, like it happened to me, like I said, like we had one called, one that was assigned, and we figured it out. Like it was like, "Oh, okay, let's just call some people that know more than me." And like they gave me a good answer. Right? So it's like you have people in the group, and that's like why I've started this. So it's like I don't want anybody to have to go with questions unanswered. Right? And if I don't know the answer, I'll ask someone else. Like that's how it should be. That's what like community is. But like the easy answer is like if something came up, yes, you could deed it back to the original borrower and like just retransfer title or maybe retransfer it like on a contract for deed. Worst case scenario, you could refinance it, right? They could deed it. I've thought about that. Like, okay, do I have enough equity in this deal to where worst case, if there's a due on sale clause, the buyer could transfer it to me. I just get a new loan on it, refinance it, and just deed it back. Like those are all like some examples of things you could do. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you
Great.
so much.
Oh yeah, hopefully that helps. No, that's kind of a lot. Great questions. Griff, bro.
Yeah, I think like what you just said was really helpful. Like looking into the future, I think raps scare me a little bit. Like raps are just kind of scary to me,
Hmm.
and I'm not 100% why, but I think the risks that I see are the holding costs and the time while you're trying to find a buyer up front
Yeah.
and you don't have a buyer. Like what happens then? You don't have a buyer and you have all these holding costs every single month. And then number two, like if they default on the payments, they're no longer making them, and you're still responsible for that payment, and you have to go through the eviction process, and that takes months. Like those two things in particular seem scary to me. And
Hmm.
so I want your opinion on like what do you think the risks are, and how do you think you can mitigate those?
That's a really good question. And I just want to validate too. I think like anybody here that's like thinking clearly, like would have the same concerns. Um, I think it's like you just get to a point where you're like, okay, am I gonna let that keep me from doing it? And I think you have to ask yourself that like question honestly. And I've had to ask myself that a lot. Um, and for me, the answer is no, but I'm also in a position now where I can afford some of that stuff. So like when you're first getting started, I think like really safe deals, maybe partnering um, with somebody on it as well that could like carry some of the cost. I know like Justin Rogers, who's in the group, is like a really big note buyer. He's got plenty of capital to be able to work with. So it's like he's someone that potentially could partner on the deal with you. You know, maybe I don't want to speak for him, but maybe cover some of those monthly costs and maybe split the deal, or you could sell the note to him just to get some practice in. So like there is that there.
Hmm.
But you definitely want to account for, I would say, at least 6 months in holding cost if you're selling a wrap. Most of our deals have sold within like 2 months, but I have had one go 7 months. That was not fun. So
Jeez.
that is something to kind of think about. Second thing is like, okay, if I can't sell it on a wrap, could I turn it into a rental and be okay? That would be like the second thing. Could I at least break even on a rental, even if it's for a year, just to kind of get a reset? Because some of this stuff is seasonal too, right? And we could talk about that. But some of it's seasonal. Like when you sell it, a lot of times, like the easiest time to get a buyer is like during like when people are getting tax refunds and they're getting big checks, like those kind of things you want to think about. During the winter months can be a little bit harder, that kind of stuff. Um, Isabel, let me see what she's saying real quick. Yeah, everybody should be connecting with Isabel for sure. She's the best. Um, but that's kind of that. And then how do you protect yourself um, from, let's say, foreclosure, that kind of thing, right? Um, I do want to say, just full transparency, I have not had that happen to me. So I'm not speaking from like full experience on this. I'm just speaking from other people's experience that have told me exactly what happened to them. So, and they're trustworthy people. So, the way to mitigate it is number one, like, are you getting a big enough down payment from your buyer? I think that's like the biggest thing. Like if someone's saying, "Hey, I'm going to give you 10 grand down for a $300,000 house," to me, I'm like, I think I'm okay. Um,
Hmm.
Now if it was like a lease option or something like that, then yeah, maybe. But like full transferring ownership, giving someone a general warranty deed for 10 grand, that's the kind of deal we want as the investor, right? But
Hmm.
like I don't think we want to just give that to anyone, right? Because when it comes to foreclosure, luckily in Tennessee, and you got to think about what states you're going to be doing this in. Like not everyone in this group is in Tennessee. If you're in a deed of trust state like Tennessee is, instead of a mortgage state, the foreclosure process is generally much quicker. So it could be usually, I think, like 60, 90 days, something like that. But if you're in, let's say, Florida, that's a long foreclosure state. That's like a mortgage state, I believe. And I know people that have tried to go through foreclosure, it's been a year and a half. So it's like that's some things I would think about. What state are you in? How big of a down payment? And like the last thing, and this is very like last thing I'll say on this, I'll move on to the next question. Like, how do you feel about the person? Is this somebody that's I think the biggest thing for me, honestly.
Hmm.
How do you feel about this person? Like, does this person, if something went wrong, would they be intimidating? Do you feel like they would work with you? Are they reasonable? Like, are they taking responsibility for some of the blemishes that they may have? Like the credit, or are they being like, oh, it's this whole story and none of it's real and my mom did this and like people will give you the runaround and like you want the people that are honest about like, hey, you know what? Like life has been hard for me, but like I've turned things around and like that's I want to own a home and I'm here for it. Like that's the
Hmm.
person you want. So hopefully that helps. Yeah, 100%
Thanks.
Martin. Yeah, great question, dude. Justin, you got wait, is Justin next or Isabel? I think it's
Yes, I am. I'm just cooking dinner.
okay, cool. What's up, man?
All right. So I know you said one of your first deals was a wholesale deal. So I'm very familiar with that as I was an investor in San Diego for the last couple of years.
Okay.
I made a lot of money. But then, market turned and I lost a lot of money. Um, and with that said, if you were to pick up a wholesale deal and I'm paying, let's say interest only payments at 10.5% to 11.5%, um, how does that work? I guess like if I were to get this deal, lock it up, I get it. I'm not going to do any renovations to it, but when I go through that hard money lender, they want to see a scope of work because now I got to go through that draw process. Um, how does that? I guess how would that play out? Does that
Um,
make sense? Or
you're saying if you bought a property using hard money,
with a wholesaler?
okay, so you bought a property through a wholesaler using hard money, and
Correct.
are you asking how you would wrap that? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Gotcha. That's a good question, actually. I'm glad we covered this. So, you generally are not able to wrap hard money using hard money.
Okay.
I would only do it with like fixed debt, 30-year debt, ideally, or something on seller financing, like the seller financed you. So yeah,
Okay.
hard money,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
or refinance. Once you get a hard money loan, refinance into a 30-year loan. Yeah,
Okay. I guess that's where I was kind of thrown off, or I maybe misheard. And I thought you said your first deal came from a wholesale.
it did. Yeah, it came from a guy
Oh,
that
okay.
wholesaled. He wholesaled me a subject to deal.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
I should have
Gotcha.
clarified. Yeah,
Okay.
great question.
Thank
Hmm.
you.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, thanks for being here.
And actually, just real quick, I am connected with Cross. We're both in Winchester. We're both in the same, well, I'm upstairs, he's downstairs. So we'll get coffee together.
Wonderful. Let's do it. I'm looking forward to it. Isabel, what's up? ¿Cómo estás?
Hey, thank you for putting this together. I'm glad that I was finally able to join.
Yeah.
Um, my question to you is, what are your requirements to see if something would work as a wrap? Like, what are the numbers that you're looking for?
God, that's a good question. So number one, does the deal have equity in price or in terms? So
Either
does it
or.
have,
Okay.
that's what I would look at first. So does the deal have any kind of equity price wise? So like ideally you're looking for, 70 to 80% of what it's worth, right? Like, can you get it
Yeah.
at that price? Okay, then like maybe that's a good deal even for a DSCR loan. Um, if it doesn't have that, let's say it's in the 80 to 90% or maybe even what it's worth range, which I'm tending to stay away from those more and more. Um, does it have term equity? So do you have a 2-3% rate and then you can finance it at 8%? Like that's what I would look at. And here's like a black and white rule for me, since I don't have many of them when it comes to this, is like if I'm gonna do a wrap, like I want it to make at least $600 a month for it to be like worth the time to do it, because it is work to set it up. That would be mine. Are there any that you've kind of thought through in your head?
So I'm just now getting more and more into this, because before I was just getting the commission.
Mhm.
But I came across a subject to in Clarksville. I had the buyer lined up for it, and but I was like, it. I can make a little bit, but it really doesn't make sense. It's better. I was doing the math. I was like, I think it's just better to just make the commission in this one because the entry fee was low. It was like $14,000,
Mhm.
and the interest rate was like 5.75.
Mhm.
So for me to make even like $200 spread, I would have to charge like a 9 point something interest rate. And then the price was basically market value.
Yeah.
So it's really good now that you say that. It's like, okay, I have to look for actually a deal. It makes sense. I
Yeah,
need a
yeah.
deal either in the interest rate or in the price. That makes sense. Thank you.
Totally. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought this up because when I first started doing them, I was like, oh, like, I mean, $300 a month is not nothing. It's like, let's just do it. But then it's like, you do think about, okay, especially if there's not any like equity captured really, it's like you're kind of keeping track of this payment. If someone misses, you got to follow up with them. Like this kind of stuff, dealing with insurance on the underlying mortgage, like that kind of stuff. Like I've had times where it's like, dude, if this deal wasn't cash flowing 700 a month, like this would be a pain in my side. So it's like there are still things like that, and I think you got to keep that in mind. Like you're still managing a payment stream, and if foreclosure, you know, hopefully not, but if it comes up, it's like, was it worth getting that 200 a month? Like what you said. Yeah. Great stuff. Yeah. We need to connect and talk more about that. That's cool. I didn't know you were getting into that. You might as well.
Yeah,
You might as
absolutely.
well. You have the
Right.
you have the buyers for it. If I were you, that's like what I'd be doing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Let's
we
let's
definitely need to
partner up
chat
on
more about
one.
it.
That's what we should do. Let's do it.
Another one, of course, of
Let's
course.
do it. Cool. I actually have one. I have another one I'm going to send you. I think I texted you that night, but I have another one I'm going to send you. Cool. Anyone else have any other questions? Got maybe 5, 10 more minutes just to chill. Anything else? Justin, I couldn't tell if you have your hand raised or not.
I do.
Okay.
Quick question. I know you said, "Oh, I forgot to record prior weeks." You recorded last week. You recorded tonight. Where are those recordings, and do you share those, or would you email those?
So the recordings are, what did we say we were going to charge, Cindy? $900, I think, for a recording? No, I'm joking.
Maybe eight.
I think we're gonna post those in just in the group, I guess. I don't know. I maybe here's what we'll do. I'll create like a separate channel for it, I guess, and then we'll do it there. That'd be the easiest way.
Oh,
Yeah. Right
okay.
now, I didn't. The last one, for some reason, I couldn't figure out how to record it, but even though I thought I did, this one we'll have posted though.
Well, you did it last week too. No flaws, brother.
Dude, come on
You did
now.
it.
You gotta like give me some grace, man. I'm struggling over here.
No, you did it. You recorded last week.
Okay, I
man.
did. Then I don't know where to find it. So this time we're gonna find it. So
Okay. Yeah,
Thank
and
you,
the
man.
reason I ask, and I did put in the chat over here as well. I did have a question there. Is
Yeah.
I'm a broker here in Tennessee,
Mhm.
so and we're doing all kinds of stuff. Cross. Just give you a little rundown. Cross does custom home builds, but then there's an investment group, and that's on the property I closed yesterday with that client of mine.
Nice.
But he's part of the custom home build, but he also owns the real estate firm that I'm the broker in. And so I don't do any calls or acquisitions or anything like that here in Tennessee, just because obviously I'm ethically held to a different standard. Not that I'm not trying to be transparent or anything. And that's what we're trying to, I just brought in an acquisition guy. I said, be fully transparent, because at the end of the day, they're going to find out somewhere down the line what is going on here. And I said, and don't feel bad about giving some pushback. He asked for some photos from an out-of-state owner who inherited his grandmother's house here in Alabama. He lives in Texas. And I said, well, just tell him, hey, man, we're here to do a deal, and it's 2025, almost 2026. If you can't provide photos for me, then I don't know what to tell you. If you want my offer that I'm offering, I need some photos before I can send some people out.
Yeah.
I don't want to waste your time or my time.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I guess I'd have to scroll back through there. What my question was about something. Oh, you said posting online that you buy houses for cash.
Mm-hmm.
Am I able to do that being a licensed broker? And I'm a broker, and you would think I would know that answer, but
I don't know.
And so that kind of stuff I tread very softly.
Yeah. I think you can. I have realtor friends that do that. I don't know if they're doing it legally or not, but I know most of my friends are ethical. At least I tried to make it that way, but I don't know. Maybe they're breaking rules they don't know about.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, it's going to come out somewhere, and so you might as well just be upfront, right up front.
For sure.
And if this isn't for you, that's totally fine.
Definitely.
I'll go through 100 people. As long as I can find one, I'll be happy.
For sure.
Beautiful. All right, thank you.
Wade, thanks for being here. Eric, what you got, man? Nolan, Mr. Nolan said he's a broker in Tennessee and can absolutely post that. So
beautiful. Thank you, Nolan.
Eric, what you got, bro?
I might have understood, but when you were talking about how long those people stay in those houses, you mentioned 5 to 7 years. Are you saying that you kind of do a balloon after a certain amount, or did I?
Good question. I'm glad you asked this. Y'all ask the best questions. So when it comes to balloons, owner financing in particular, especially to an individual, you have to be really careful with that. I do know there is some I don't want to say laws around it, but I'm almost positive there is. And I would at least be careful when it comes to um, protecting consumers, like regular consumers, and how um, a judge may see that versus you putting a balloon on somebody that's buying it from like with an LLC. Because the argument may be like, oh, like the homeowner like didn't even understand like what a balloon fully was, or like, hey, like the homeowner didn't have the funds to be able to do that, or whatever it was, right? And so I don't do any balloons on mine. I don't do 5, 7, 10 year. I do 30-year fixed mortgages, with the understanding that I'm saying, hey, what do you feel like your timeline is on this? Because I don't want this to go 30 years. Um, and I've never had a problem with it yet, but that's not to say that at some point there aren't some things or tactics you may try to use to kind of just get them to refinance, you know? I know some people, especially when rates start dropping again, that have some pretty interesting ways of getting people to refinance. So, yeah. Hopefully answers your question, but when it comes to balloons, I would be careful.
Okay, but so you don't ask them to get a balloon. They if they find a lower interest rate and they can apply for it, then they would
Mhm.
just buy the property that way. And
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
They do that, and then because that's the biggest thing I worry about sometimes with these is like long term, especially the ones that you took sub two. It's like, how are these people going to feel if it was 7, 8 years? You know, like, and I don't know the answer to that. Some of them may not care at all, to be honest. And how many of those are actually going to go that long? Probably not many. I think most of them are probably either going to sell, refinance, or default within a 5 to 7 year period. That's what I've heard from people that have done like hundreds of these. That's kind of the average. So,
Gotcha.
yeah,
Okay,
great question for sure.
awesome. Thank you.
What's up, Amir? Yeah, dude.
Yeah, so a quick flashback to the question that you asked earlier on this call.
Hmm.
I think it is okay, and it's somehow related to this last question. It is okay that we have a balloon on the loan that actually we are offering to other people, like we are selling on owner financing. If there is any balloon on that, we're good. But if there is any balloon on the loan that we just took over, that's the problem, right? Because let's say you bought a house subject to, and there's no balloon on it.
Yeah.
If you sell it on owner financing and you put a like 15-year balloon on it, by
Hmm.
the year 15, they have to pay off the loan that we offered them, and that's gonna pay off the loan that we took over before. That doesn't have to go through the 30-year completion, right? And then we're gonna end up walking away with some cash, right? The spread. But if there is any balloon on the first one, that's the problem,
I hear what you're
right?
saying. Yeah, yeah. So the problem I was saying, that's a good point. Obviously, if there is like let's say it was a 5 year balloon, here's a better example. If it was a seller finance property you bought on seller finance, not subject to whatever, right? 5 year balloon, okay, got it. If you wanted to technically to hope that you didn't get in trouble for this, you could offer a balloon to a consumer, but the balloon would have to be larger than the one on the underlying, right? But my recommendation to them, Amir, was that offering balloons in
Mm,
general to consumers that like are just normal people buying a home is probably not a good idea. Um,
right. Right.
they're just you just wouldn't want to get in front of a judge and have to explain like I don't know that I don't want that. But there are people that do it, and I'm sure it goes well probably most of the time. But it's like then it's like if they don't pay by year 10, like are you gonna foreclose on them? And like if you do, like how is that gonna look? I don't know. I don't think
Mm,
it's gonna look very good. But
got it.
that's just me. Yeah, great question or great insight. Anything else before we go? I got time for one more question if anybody wants to. Your illustrations need to be comprehensive and detailed. I think I understand what you're saying. What do you mean, Marlon or Martin?
Yes, thank you very much, Evan.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone.
Hey, good to see you, man.
No problem. Just with regards to Amir's comments and your response, if there's any doubt at all about the balloon and so forth, as long as you have your illustrations, your documentation, the
Mhm.
numbers, the price points, and everything else mapped out in detail, and it's under contract, they've signed the contract, then it's a legal document where they've understood in those terms listed, you should be covered. But the more detail you give them in terms of comprehending what you're actually sharing as a balloon and so forth, that would be so much easier.
You're right. Yeah, having it laid out super important. I agree. That's good insight. Thanks for saying that. David, what's up, man?
Hey, dude, thanks for doing all this. It's been great
Dude,
stuff again this week. So definitely appreciate you. And
thanks for being here, man. Means a
yeah,
lot to me.
man. Yeah, all good. So how do you analyze um, if it's better to keep that low sub 2 rate for a longer period? Let's say your average wrap, if they do come and close on it in 5 to 7 years, then that rate for you is gone. Versus, hey, if it was a normal rental that you wanted to keep, 20, 30 years, and then you also gain all the market appreciation or all the inflation that's gonna keep on happening. So how do you kind of analyze that?
That's an incredible question. I think it obviously, I hate being like, I feel like a freaking chat GPT sometimes. It's like, it depends on your investment, strategy, whatever. But like, that is partly true. It's like, are you more focused on cash flow or long-term growth right now? Like, and also like, what stage of the business are you in? Like, for you, it's probably, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm assuming from what you've told me and like the position you're in, it's probably better to hold most of them
Yeah,
than to like try to, because you already got good cash flow from your businesses.
yeah,
But for people that are like trying to like just like breathe and get whatever, like I would do
yeah.
taps at first.
Makes sense.
For me, I've gotten more into here's kind of how I decide it normally. If it's a property that has good equity, that likely is like a little more turnkey or close to it and has a low rate, I'm gonna try to hold on to those. Like 2.5, 3%, like it's say the roof is newer, HVAC, that kind of stuff. Like I want to keep those all day. But if
Cool.
it's something that's going to need like 30, 40 grand in work and I got to sink money into it, I'd rather sell it as is on a wrap. Like that's kind of where I've been at recently in my, that's how I kind of gauge that. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
yeah, that's great. Let them do the
Mhm.
repairs for it.
Mhm.
Cool.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it, man. It's pretty crazy. It
Yeah,
really is. And I get it though, too. I mean, there's people on the market that will buy homes that need a ton of work. So it's
yeah,
like if you're offering owner financing, especially to somebody that's in construction or something like that in that field, like they'll be like, oh, I'll knock that out in a month.
yeah.
No problem for them. So
Good stuff.
it's pretty
Cool.
cool. Yeah. How do you see it? Like what, like when you're thinking through that conversation in your head, how do you think through that?
Yeah, I have not done any wraps yet,
Hmm.
but I am thinking long-term wealth on that. So I think it does come down if somebody does need some, quick money or money to live off of,
Yeah.
then yeah, they got to have that. But I've always, kept the savings really high and got some other cash flow stuff happening. So mine's long-term
You're killing it, dude.
stuff at this point.
Freaking killing it. I don't know if you mind sharing this. You could say no, but do you mind sharing how many rentals you have right now?
No. I'm
Okay.
just kidding.
I
I
was
like to
like,
joke a little bit. So I have 25 rentals, and
yeah.
every single one of them has some crazy, unique story where I've found a deal
So
or, um, yeah, just been in the right place at the right time, or lots of off-market stuff, done some lease purchases.
mhm.
Actually had a real estate agent in my office that had a lease purchase, and this was like in 22. They signed it in like 21. It went up $100,000, and he didn't sell his family's farm that he inherited, and he was about to give that lease purchase up. And I
Mm,
said, "Hold on, my man, pump the brakes, and I'll give you $10,000 for you to sign this to me real quick." And the seller was okay with it, and bam, instant equity right there where this guy who was a real estate agent was about to lose all that. So, and just staying
wow.
open minded, like every deal is so unique. It's kind of crazy on that.
That is so cool, dude. Yeah. I mean, for anybody here in the group that's like wanting to know more about rentals, it's like, I mean, this guy just said he owns 25. So it's like you got people in here that are experienced and stuff. And like I would recommend like if you hear someone like David or someone else that's experienced in the group, like talking about something, like reach out to them too. Like use this community as like a network. That's like the goal of it. So cool. I really appreciate y'all being here tonight. It's been awesome getting to go over this with y'all and some amazing questions too that have made me kind of rethink some things. Yeah, very grateful for each and every one of y'all. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, and I'll see you next week.
Grand. Well done, Evan. Take
Yeah.
care.
Yeah,
Thanks.
take care.
Cheers.
Bye bye.